Uh-oh.
In her last two fights. Good way hitting him from now
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What is a major announcement from boxer Lauren Price's world title fight against Jessica McCaskill on May 11th will be free to view in Wales.
Where Lauren is from.
BBC Wales, following a landmark rights deal with Boxer and Sky Sports, the effort to cultivate hometown favor for the hometown talent. You know, all through the Tokyo Olympics, all I could hear about was Lauren Price.
How good she was.
And how she won the gold. You think about Katie Taylor. Katie comes to mind because she, like Lauren Price, was an amateur standout and Olympic gold medalist who had a sizable following all through the amateurs that followed her into the pros, which is what led to her garnering the sport of women's boxing as much attention as she did, in tandem with standout performances that made you say, wow.
You think about that and you think about this. How the people at Boxer are making Lauren's fight available to that many more people in Wales in an effort
to capitalize on Lauren's hometown following. All those people who supported her all through the amateurs, they are hoping they will continue to support her all through the pros in what is her first world title bid against a seasoned fighter, a seasoned champion in Jessica McCaskill, after just a handful of fights.
I think Lauren is ready.
It can't be understated. Having that grassroots following, that hometown following, it is essential towards a fighter potentially crossing over.
That's what we saw with Katie. That's what we may be seeing with Lauren.
Ahead of her upcoming fight with a common opponent between them, Jessica McCaskill, who fought Katie Taylor years ago. She's fighting Lauren Price now, but this is up there at 147 pounds. And Jessica is older now than she was then. In truth, I think Lauren has what it takes here and now to beat Jessica McCaskill. And not just Jessica, Natasha Jonas, if she is so given the chance.
Why?
She's too fucking fast. Lauren Price is lightning fast, very athletic, and hard to catch, fundamentally sound, gifted. So if she got the chance to fight Natasha after this, I think she'd beat her too.
Natasha is rumored to be facing Michaela Mayer for the second time in her next fight.
If Lauren Price makes it through this and gets to face the winner, that will further enhance her profile.
See if she does.
What is a fresher and younger fighter than all of these aforementioned fighters, I would give Lauren Price reasonable odds to beat any one of them. The fighters that she needs to worry about, the fighters that may pose a more difficult challenge. Sandy Ryan of Derby,
WBO champion.
What is a younger and fresher fighter than all of those aforementioned fighters, naturally bigger as well. Sandy Ryan is not some smaller fighter who moved up to welterweight. She's a true welterweight.
She's on the matchroom side of things.
So she's not really Lauren's problem, not at the moment, not right now. But if Lauren becomes a champion in her next fight at the same weight where Sandy holds a WBO title, a fight between them, that conversation could gain some traction. And Sandy is a fighter that she needs to worry about. Yet another fighter that Lauren Price needs to be mindful of at or around these weights is O'Shea Jones of the United States. Amateur standout and an unbeaten up-and-comer in the pros that is quietly developing in the background of all of this, fight by fight. I believe that O'Shea's last fight was just north of welterweight at junior middle, but you know how the ladies are. They move up and down in weight a lot more than the guys do, depending on the opportunity. And that in and of itself makes a fight between O'Shea and Lauren a potentiality. Maybe not right now, but down the line. It's going to be a good one if and when the time comes down the line. Yet another unbeaten up-and-comer at or around these weights that you want to keep an eye on is Puerto Rico's own Estefany Piñeiro,
who, like O'Shea Jones, is quietly developing in the background, the backdrop of all of this on the island of Puerto Rico,
where she's from. This is yet another fighter that Lauren Price needs to be mindful of. Perhaps not right now. Fights with these fighters aren't on the eve of happening, but sooner or later, they're going to. What Lauren is doing now is making her bones against the old guard.
The established names, the established fighters, some of which are getting long in the tooth.
With just a handful of fights to take on a more seasoned fighter than herself, a champion in Jessica McCaskill, it's the right combination of things where Lauren is still green around the gills, more or less. Jessica's more experienced, but long in the tooth.
She's getting older, slower.
She hasn't looked good in her last 2 fights, so for Lauren, it's the right time to strike, to win that belt and continue to amass that hometown following, that grassroots following. According to Lauren, the tickets are selling well.
Yes.
Better than she thought.
Than she anticipated.
So it's good that she's amassing that hometown following, though to amass an international one, that's going to be a bit harder. That takes memorable performances, standout performances.
We'll see if Lauren gives us one against Jessica McCaskill.
If we represent Adam as a team, maybe we've made the same decision. But you do it in a manner that doesn't waste people's time. You know, there was talk around, we're going to wait and see what happens with the Zepeda fight. All they wanted to do there was hope he lost. That's all they were waiting for. And, you know, look, I think it would have been a massive payday for Adam Azim. Am I sitting here saying that necessarily for his career is the wrong move? No, but deal with it in the right manner. You know, deal with it a month ago. And also, you can't position someone as, you know, the future of the sport. We're going to fight Keyshawn Davis tomorrow, fight at Wembley, etc., and then pull out the Dalton Smith fight. You know, it's just about, at the end of the day, it's a bit of a PR disaster for them, which is led by them. But that's what they tend to do time and time again. It's not the first time, it won't be the last.
We gave up on that fight a long time ago. I mean, Ben Shalom texted Frank Smith, I don't know, 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, and said, we're not fighting Dalton Smith. But they never vacated the position. And that was the frustrating thing, the annoying thing, because we knew they were never going to fight Dalton. And obviously the performance against Zepeda made them shit themselves even more. So I think it was more just a frustration for us. You got to, you know, look, we're all in the sugarcoating game, aren't we, in the promotional business? We're all trying to spin a story or tell you, you know, and that was just, I don't know, desperation, but you sort of getting 2 blokes in a ring. I mean, apparently Harlem Eubank was called, you know, pretty much like on the day and said, like, get yourself to London. It didn't even really know what was going on. But you got to, I don't mind the move. It was just, they should have done it 3 months ago, really, because it just got a bit embarrassing. The other problem is they haven't actually got a signed contract with Harlem Eubank. And if I'm Harlem Eubank, I'm pulling their pants down and I'm making sure they pay me absolute top dollar. And Chris Eubank Sr. will do it because he knows what he's doing. He knows now that if they don't deliver the Harlem Eubank fight, they're going to look so stupid because it's not signed. So, yeah, I don't mind it. You know, I mean, it just depends. I'm just about elite fighters and elite fights, and that is a decent little sort of English, British level title fight. I don't hate the fight. It's just when you're talking about Dalton Smith and you're talking about Keyshawn Davis and you're talking about this and that, it just bites you in the arse a little bit when you basically know you can't beat those guys. So life and sport is about levels, and you got Dalton Smith, who's world class, and Adam Azim, who's British title level.
In case you're not completely clued in, the reason that Frank and Eddie are laying into Ben Shalom, Boxer, and Adam Azim is because Adam, in so many words, ducked Dalton Smith. Up until recently, Adam Azim was EBU champion. Dalton Smith was his mandatory challenger. This dragged on for months, just for Adam Azim to officially vacate his EBU super lightweight title after being ordered to fight Dalton. Now, he's planning on facing Harlem Eubank instead. Eddie Hearn stated, "You can sugarcoat it all you want. Adam Azim has ducked Dalton Smith."
So I see it.
I didn't expect that the fight between Dalton Smith and Adam Azim would happen, in spite of the EBU's order. I didn't expect that Ben Shalom would roll the dice and allow that fight to happen.
Because he never does. There's an established pattern to how Ben Shalom behaves in these situations.
Based on that established pattern, I did not expect the fight to happen. Eddie Hearn continued, "You can't talk about we're a victim of the game. They don't want to work with us. It's absolute rubbish. When Fabio Wortley versus Frazier Clark got ordered, they pulled out. They've just done it again with Adam Azim and Dalton Smith. Jai Opataya versus Richard Riakporhe. They pulled out. Carolyn Dubois versus Beatrice Ferreira. They pulled out. Now, Chev Clark is mandatory for Isaac Chamberlain, and they won't even mention his name. You're seeing the benefit to boxing of Matchroom and Queensberry working together. 5 brilliant fights there, and everyone. They haven't been willing.
He was responding to Ben Shalom's comments that they're just a victim of the game and nobody wants to work with them.
Which isn't true. When the people at Boxer made an offer to host the Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgartner fight, Matchroom didn't stand in the way. They sent their champion over willingly. Why can't Boxer oblige them? Why can't Boxer do the same?
And that's not the only instance where Matchroom was willing to roll the dice.
They sent unbeaten Felix Cash over to the Queensberry promotion side of things for the Denzel Bentley fight. It's not what Boxer would have done in that same situation. No, what Boxer would have done in that situation was pull Felix Cash out. Matchroom sent John Ryder over to the Queensberry side of things for the Zach Parker fight.
Is that what Boxer would have done? Ben Shalom.
On the heels of what was a great fight between Frazier Clark and Fabio Wortley, they finally got it done, and it delivered. It seems that the only way that Boxer were willing to make that fight happen was if Matchroom wasn't involved. So you can't then turn around and say that they don't want to work with us. It's the other way around. You don't want to work with them.
That's fine.
Go for the biosphere approach. Make everything as insulated for yourselves and your fighters as you can. Remember that Frank and Eddie are bosom buddies now. After years of rivalry, the feuding factions of fans and the feuding promoters, they're working together now, making fights.
Right?
While you paint yourself into a corner, draw a line in the sand that everybody can see. The Frazier Clark versus Fabio Wortley fight delivered. The numbers are great. I saw it myself. Fantastic. It's one of the better cards that Boxer has put on. But if you're going to draw this line in the sand,
You better come up with more fights like that.
because both Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren jointly intend to. It's not just the Matchroom versus Queensberry show in Saudi. They're planning on doing another one later on this year, and you have to compete with that.
The second one's going to be in the UK. That's what they're saying. They want to do it at Wembley. And Ben Shalom,
He's got to compete with that while taking this biosphere approach. That's not saying that you have to send all of your fighters to Matchroom whenever situations like this roll around. No, not all of them, but at least one, like Matchroom did for you.
Ben doesn't want to.
And it just is what it is. While Frazier Clark versus Fabio Wortley delivered, what you have to ask yourself is, how many more fights like that can Ben Shalom put together in-house?
It's clear you don't want nothing to do with Matchroom.
You don't seem to be doing very much of anything with Queensberry, this insulated approach. Does Ben Shalom and Boxer have enough to stand alone and compete with these people? Because that's the situation.
It's resulted in some bad press for Adam Azim.
Because that was a duck. I don't see it any other way. Just in keeping with the theme of super lightweight news, super lightweight action, the Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia undercard has been announced for April 20th in New York. And on that undercard, we're going to be seeing Arnold Barboza versus Sean McComb, Bektemir Melenkuziev versus Pierre Debombe, John Scrappy Ramirez versus David Jimenez, and Charles Conwell versus Nathaniel Gallimore. What you're noticing is that these are all Golden Boy Promotions fighters from the Golden Boy Promotions stable, because Golden Boy are the ones at the helm of the promotion.
Right?
Which has given rise to criticism that given the fight's hefty pay-per-view price tag for that kind of undercard, it's really not worth it. But need I remind you that the undercard for Ryan's fight with Gervonta wasn't much better. The only real difference was that you had some PBC fighters sprinkled in there, but the matchups themselves, the fights, they weren't mouth-watering fights. They weren't all that good.
That if the criticism is this undercard is weak, well, so was that one.
Vito Milnicki versus Jose Sanchez?
What?
David Morrell versus Yamaguchi Falcao?
Who's the ones doing the criticizing?
Gervonta Davis's core supporters. Who else? The ones who stand in opposition of Devin Haney and everything he's doing and what he's trying to do. They're nervous. They don't like the idea that Devin Haney in his next fight may sell more pay-per-views than Gervonta will in his next fight because Gervonta's next fight is supposed to be against Frank Martin.
Frank's not as popular as Ryan. He's not as popular as Devin.
That without Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis can't come close to 1 million pay-per-view buys or even 500,000. Whereas this fight
is not going to do 1 million buys.
I don't think it's going to do 1 million buys. I don't think it's going to do what Ryan did with Gervonta did last year. But I do think it's going to do more numbers, more buys than Gervonta's next fight, set to go down in late June.
The Gervonta Davis fans are saying they're not going to buy this fight. It's not worth it. The undercard is weak.
But the undercard was weak for Gervonta's fight with Ryan Garcia. Moreover, in this fight, unlike Gervonta's fight, there are no weight stipulations. There's no weight cap, no catch weight, no rehydration clause. If you were okay paying $80 to see Gervonta versus a weight-drained fighter, then surely this is better.
Unless you didn't pay anything and you stole that fight like you're about to steal this one.
Because that's what I think is going on. When I see these kinds of obtuse and skewed perspectives, they don't make sense from a consumer perspective, from a consumer's standpoint, unless you're not actually a consumer. You steal all the content you watch while playing sides.
Because you're poor.
You can't afford to watch Gervonta Davis's pay-per-view any more than you can afford to watch Devin Haney's pay-per-view.
Because you're poor.
So when you go on the attack for one show in favor of the other, it doesn't really make sense because your broke ass can't afford either of them.
Get a job.
You've got bigger problems than what's on Devin's undercard versus what's on Gervonta's undercard. You can't afford either of them and you know it.
You bum.
You bums aren't good for anything, which wouldn't even be the worst thing in the world if you didn't go out of your way to inject yourselves into conversations that no one is having with you, because what we do here is tantamount to a product review, whereas what you do is tantamount to shoplifting and purse snatching. Petty theft.
From petty people.
Useless. Do you think you're championing some kind of a cause because you support Gervonta a bit more than you support Devin?
No.
In reality, you don't support either of them. You can't. Because you're a bum.
Can't even support yourself.
Just a bunch of fucking bums. Mouthy bums.
You're poor.
What you think doesn't matter in any arena, in any spectrum of the conversation that the adults are having. What you need to do is go sit at the kiddie table until you start making grown man money. Enough that you don't have to keep stealing digital content to talk about it online.
You're poor.
Fucking poor, you fucking bums. You think about anything under the sun. Doesn't matter, and you can hardly shame a cockroach for being a cockroach, but every so often, you do have to squish them. Every so often, it's necessary.